Please remain standing for prayers by the Reverend Desi Goldsmith, DL.
We began this week remembering the events 20 years ago, when the joys of the coming Olympics to London were overtaken by the horrors of the bombings on 7th July 2005. Let us take a moment of quiet to remember all those who continue to be affected by that day, and to work for peace and harmony in the diverse place that is London today. As we come together now, we pause to give thanks for the day that has been, the joys we have encountered and the challenges faced. We now leave them in your care, O Lord, as we gather together to discuss matters relating to the communities that make up the London Borough of Hillingdon. We give thanks for the dedication of members and officers who serve this borough. Give wisdom and guidance to all who deliberate on the items before them this evening. May every decision be for the benefit of all who live and work in the London Borough of Hillingdon, recognising that all are made as your creation and made in your image. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing now for a minute's silence for the late Ken Guy, past Mayor and Freeman of the Borough. And also we remember Councillors David Bishop and Peter MacDonald, and past Mayoress Mrs. Amtu Wood-Wallana. Thank you. And before you sit down on this unseasonably warm evening, for anyone who wishes to dispense with their jacket, if you've not already done so, please feel free. There is some precedent for it, and it's very, very warm. So please do so, and please be seated. So we come first then to apologies for absence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and councillors. I have apologies from Councillors Bridges, Hagger, Judge and Tuckwell.
Thank you. Agenda item 2, minutes to receive the minutes of the meetings of the Council held on the 22nd of February and the 8th of May. Are these agreed? Thank you. Third item, declarations of interest in matters before us this evening. I'm scanning the room in vain. I don't seem to be any declarations, so we'll take it as there being none. Thank you. We come then to Mayor's announcements. So here I go. Well, they said it would go quickly, and they weren't wrong about that, were they? I'm already 9 weeks into the role, and I've already had some interesting reactions from one or two people I've met, including one young mum at a school who said to me, "My son thinks you're the king." And undoubtedly, for me, the highlight so far, among many special events, has been the Mayor's Picnic in the Park on Cally Rec at the start of June. Until the very last moment, it might have been cancelled due to the weather, and it fell to me to make the final call on whether to go ahead. And in spite of intermittent rain, we had a tremendous event with over 1,500 guests, many stakeholder organisations and my charities, and it was good to see a number of elected members from across the chamber present as well. Everyone among the many I spoke to on the day said it had been a resounding success, and the decision to go ahead was fully vindicated. And also a big shout out to the mayoral team, and Cheryl in particular, in making it all possible. We're now working on a programme of activities for the year in partnership with the Hillingdon Chamber of Commerce and the wider business community and voluntary organisations, details of which will follow. However, I will shamelessly give a plug for my bunker visit in September, of which you will already have details, with a guided tour, afternoon tea, and particularly for those members who have never been, I can tell you it really is a treat. So I would encourage you to sign up to that if you can. We're also working on a charity cricket match and a family fun event towards the end of the season, which is something else to look forward to. Now, earlier today, I attended an event which, for me, really resonated with my years of service as Cabinet Member for Adults, namely the Graduation Awards for the excellent DFN project search, where it was my great privilege to meet many young people with various support needs who have successfully completed a skills-based training programme in partnership with Hillingdon Hospital. It was wonderful to see a high proportion of the graduates having already secured paid employment. Finally, it has also been my pleasure to host several school visits to the parlour and the council chamber. These visits are not, I think, just a chance to educate young people, they are also a chance for us to refresh our own sense of purpose. The pupils' curiosity about our roles reminds us of why we entered public service in the first place, to represent, to listen and to improve lives. They were curious about how we manage respectful disagreements. I think that should give us all pause for thought tonight, given our agenda this evening. Because how we model debate here in this chamber, erudite and passionate no doubt, hopefully also respectful, resonates beyond the walls of this chamber. With that, I'll leave it there. It's a long agenda. Thank you very much indeed. So we now come to agenda item 5, which is public question time. Lloyd?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of our guests present tonight, so public question time is limited to 30 minutes in accordance with the Constitution, and the Mayor has asked me to remind the public questioners to just read out the question as it's printed. Please don't extemporise, or the Mayor will have to ask you to move on, and you'll be taking time from other people's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. So we come to the first question from Brian Lawrence of Meadowview Road, Hayes, to the Cabinet Member for Community and Environment, Councillor Lavery.
Not here, Mr. Mayor.
I shall read the question on his behalf in that case then. So the question is, as there has been no notification as to why Hillingdon in Bloom and the autumn show was cancelled, can you please provide an answer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and as the questioner is not present, I will supply a written answer in due course.
Thank you. It's perfectly legitimate for the Cabinet Member to respond in that way in the absence of a questioner. Thank you. Second question is from Jash Patel of Leholme Way, Ruislip, to the Cabinet Member for Community and Environment, Councillor Lavery. Now, because Jash isn't here this evening, I'm going to read that question as well. Please consider charging an entrance fee for visitors to Ruislip Lido from outside the Borough of Hillingdon. The attached article means that the Ruislip Lido will be visited by thousands of visitors free of charge to enjoy the beach. The sufferers of this will be Hillingdon residents paying the council tax. The visitors park all across the surrounding area, causing problems for the residents. I have been a resident in Leholme Way for 48 years and am an ex-Hillingdon Council pensioner. I have made this request 2 to 3 times, no joy. Councillor Lavery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will again supply a written answer.
The next question on the agenda is from Andrea Scrivens of Broadwood Avenue, Ruislip.
At the Cabinet meeting on the 26th of June in relation to the item concerning the RAGC, it was stated that all those who required an assessment of their social care needs would have one. At a time when I understand social services to be already stretched, have they got the capacity to carry out those assessments? What is the timescale for the completion, and what are the estimated costs?
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Scrivens, if I'm correct, or Miss Scrivens, if I'm not, for your question. The Cabinet's decision to close the retail operation of the Rural Activities Garden Centre has been accompanied by a clear commitment from Adult Social Care to ensure that all individuals with eligible needs are assessed in line with our statutory duties under the Care Act of 2014. As previously stated, anyone who feels that they may have eligible needs can approach the Council for an assessment. It is our duty to ensure that there is sufficient capacity to undertake assessments as necessary. All assessments are triaged and prioritised. The Learning Disability Team social workers will support users, their carers and families with assessment processes and communication. Whilst all adult social care budgets are challenged from underfunding, it is a duty of the service to meet these obligations, and it is not anticipated that the small number of additional assessments required will cause any additional pressure to the budget. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. We move on to question 5.4 from Isabel Stevenson of Parkfield Road.
Thank you. I'm frightened for the safety of my son, who has been attending the Rural Activities Garden Centre as a gardener for many years. It is a safe and calming environment where our family can get respite for a few hours, knowing he is safe with friends doing what he enjoys the most. Please, can the Cabinet member explain to me how the open aspect of the Civic Centre gardens allocated to the alternative provision to the RAGC can be made safe for my son?
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your question. Adult social care recognises the vital role carers play in supporting their relatives, and that any changes to routine need careful handling. Any support that you require is available via social workers, staff at the RAGC, and of course the Carers Trust, our third sector providers of care support across the borough. Each person that will be attending the Civic Centre environment will have a risk assessment in place, as well as a detailed support plan, and the familiar staff who know them well will continue to provide that support in a safe way. The service at the Civic Centre will be managed and supported by the daycare team from Queen's Walk Resource Centre, whose leadership has extensive experience supporting individuals with complex needs. The Civic Centre has robust emergency procedures, including controlled access, CCTV monitoring, and designated assembly points designed to keep the public and staff safe. Thank you.
Beg your pardon. Thank you, Councillor Palmer. And the next question, 5.5, is from Sarah Green of Ivor Lane, Uxbridge.
Thank you. The Council has a statutory responsibility to remediate the New Year's Green landfill site and stop the landfill leachate polluting Ickenham public water source on Breakspear Road South. After the 5-year period of natural monitored attenuation, which was 2013 to 2019, a report should have been written to inform decision makers of the pollution rates and what the recommended next steps are. Sufficient quantity of clean tap water is becoming critical in London. Can the Cabinet member tell the public the results of the natural monitored attenuation at New Year's Green landfill site and the next steps being taken? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Sarah Green for your question. For the public record, the water supply referred to in the question is not an active source of public water for Ickenham or anywhere else. And again, should anybody have concerns about the quality or quantity of public water, these are best directed to the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency is the statutory regulator for water resources, which includes quality. The Council is currently in conversations with the Environment Agency regarding the New Year's Green Lane landfill site and its impact on groundwater. This ongoing collaboration includes developing approaches to monitoring and natural attenuation, which are yet to be agreed. Previous monitoring showed a reducing impact from this historic landfill site, which, although positive news, necessitates the review of monitoring going forward and what form this takes. We will, of course, ensure the details of this review are made public when they are agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question is 5.6 from John Scrivens of Broadwood Avenue.
In order to scrutinise the Cabinet's decision to close the Rural Activities Garden Centre, is the Council able to provide evidence that it has examined the option of community asset transfer to transfer management of RAGC to Friends of RAGC or other community organisation, as this is an obvious alternative to closure, which would open additional funding opportunities for RAGC and be supported by the on-site RAGC operating team?
Thank you. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Mr. Scrivens, and thank you for your question. I believe I'm correct in saying that you attended the Cabinet meeting, the recent Cabinet meeting at which this matter was raised. What I'm going to say will therefore not vary significantly from what I said that night, but may help clarify some points further. Let me state clearly that the Council has not considered, nor examined any options for the future use of the RAGC site at this time. On the 26th of June, just gone, Cabinet made the decision to close the retail element of the garden centre and is continuing to consult, as my colleague Councillor Palmer has just said, with its users on moving the social care services it provides on the site to the Civic Centre, assisting volunteer users with finding alternative similar services within the borough and working with our voluntary partners. Until such time as the consultation is concluded and further decisions made by the Cabinet member on the future of the RAGC site and relocation of the service provision, the Council is not in a position to consider any future uses. The Council is in receipt of 2 nominations for the RAGC site and 1 nomination for the adjoining overflow car park, which belongs to a third party, to be listed as assets of community value. These nominations are currently being considered by the Council following due process in accordance with the Localism Act 2011. These applications are separate and independent to the decisions regarding the closure of the retail element of the garden centre. If the sites meet the criteria required by the legislations and the assets are listed as assets of community value, an asset transfer will arise should the Council or the third-party owner decide to sell the site. I think that's an important point to note. The listing of an asset of community value only occurs if the owner of the site is proposing to sell. And as an example, many of us will have come across situations where a country pub in a village has been closed and put up for sale by a brewery and the village clubs together to buy it and turn it into a community asset. We have not made any decision, let us make this quite clear, we have not made any decision at this time to sell the site. Should we do so, then that provision could apply if it is deemed to be appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. And the final question from a member of the public, 5.7 from Mark Pearman, please.
We've seen it before, where the council promises what their plans are with no detail and asks for residents to trust them. In the past, we have seen Colin Green Day Centre close and being used for a housing estate. This centre was moved to a smaller centre, Parkview Day Centre, along the Uxbridge Road. A few years later, that centre closed and the service was moved to a warehouse in Uxbridge. Shortly after, this closed too. Can the leader of the council explain why this time it will be any different and why the council has been purposely managing to decline the RAGC site.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Scrivens. And in answer to your question, I do not recognise some of the assertions you've made. It is necessary for the council to bring about change in the way it delivers services and the use of its assets throughout the life of the administration. And we do that sensitively and in consideration of the needs of users. With regards to the Rural Activities Garden Centre, there is subject to a motion later, and you will hear from me further on those issues. But what we have done here is to close a retail garden centre. The horticultural activities provided at this centre have not yet been determined, and they will be determined separately. So in answer to this question, I don't recognise your assertions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. So we move now to agenda item 6, a report of the Head of Democratic Services. So, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you call upon the Leader of the Council, I'd just like to draw members' attention to item little 3 at the top of page 4, which is the appointment of the statutory officer. In the agenda paper that went out, there was no name in there. It was to be confirmed, and so the details of the person to be recommended to be the Section 151 officer are set out there. I just want to make sure all members were aware of that.
Thank you, Lloyd. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I move the report of the Head of Democratic Services, which is in 4 parts. First part lists the 5 decisions taken under the urgency provisions of the Constitution since the last council meeting. Each relates to contractual decisions and have been taken to ensure building programmes were kept on track or to prevent harm or detriment to Hillingdon residents. The second part of the report describes the changes to political balance following the ousting of the former Labour leader by the Labour group. A new political grouping, the Hayes Independent Party, has been established, and under statute they are entitled to representation on committees, as stated in the report under the recommendation at some paragraph 2.4. I take the liberty of this point, if I may, extend my thanks to Councillor Curling for his service to the borough as Leader of the Opposition. A leader who I had great confidence in and had developed a good working relationship, which would probably surprise residents when they see the knockabout that happens in this chamber. I also congratulate Councillor Mathers to his election and very much hope that he shows the same level of commitment to the interests of Hillingdon residents, and we are equally able to develop such a relationship. Part 3 recommends the Council appointment of Stephen Muldoon as our Section 151 officer once he joins the Council in September, which will be before the next Council meeting. The Appointments Committee of the 1st of July appointed Mr Muldoon to the role of the Corporate Director of Finance, and I am very pleased that we've been able to make that permanent appointment in the very challenging recruitment market there is for senior financial officers in the public sector. The final part of the report, Part 4, seeks Council approval to amend the terms of reference for the North West London Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It is an amendment to enable major reconfiguration of services that is going to follow with a new 10-year NHS plan without the requirement to establish a new joint committee. The changes are helpfully shown in red in the report. I therefore move the noting of the urgent decisions and the recommendations to change the political balance of committees, to appoint our Section 151 officer, and to amend the joint committee terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded?
Mr. Mayor, I second.
Thank you. Any other speakers? There appear not to be. Okay. Therefore, is that agreed? Thank you. Right. So we come on then to members' questions. The first of which.
Mr. Mayor, just for the benefit of our guests in the public gallery, members' questions work very much like the public questions, the difference being there is a time limit of 45 minutes, that being because the member can ask a supplementary question after the main answer.
Thank you, Lloyd. So coming back to members' questions. So the first is 7.3 from Councillor Haggard, who isn't here this evening, so I'm going to read this out on her behalf. What effect is the Cabinet decision to close the retail operation of the Rural Activities Garden Centre likely to have on the social care provision of horticultural therapy?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for asking the question on behalf of Councillor Haggard. The Cabinet's decision to close the retail arm of the RAGC, the Rural Activities Garden Centre, has prompted a strategic transition in how horticultural opportunities and life skills activities are provided for residents with assessed social care needs. While the commercial aspect of the garden centre will cease, horticulture remains of both interest and value to residents with adult social care needs. Most residents with assessed needs that attend the RAGC do so on a sessional basis with their support worker, for example 1 to 2 sessions per week, with a session being AM or PM. The remainder of their week is occupied by undertaking other daytime activities of their choice. This will not change. Over several years, RAGC users have been supported to attend the Civic Centre to undertake planting of the front-facing flower beds, general gardening and supporting the Civic Centre estate, and is widely recognised as a positive piece of work. To maintain familiarity and continue to add value to the estate, as well as enhancing residents' work, it is anticipated that this can continue to offer residents opportunities they are familiar with and they enjoy. There are new gardens being developed in the area of the new registry office, which will give real opportunities for planting and maintaining a pleasant and pleasing environment. The adult education services on site, as is the library, with a wide range of opportunities continuing to be replicated. Stability, familiarity and managing change with staff that are knowledgeable and known to them. The Civic Centre model reflects a shift from single-site opportunities with outcomes focus that is consistent with national and local priorities for adult social care. With a CQC rating of good for adult social care, this council can, will and does deliver social care from anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. So we come to the next member question, 7.2 from Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is to the Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education, Councillor Susan O'Brien. Why was Hillingdon's important annual Education Standards Report 2023-24 not considered by Cabinet this year, as has been the case in previous years? Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sweeting, for your question. The Education Standards Report for the academic year 2023-2024 was presented to the Children's, Family and Education Select Committee on the 20th of March 2025, whereby the data was scrutinised by the committee. The feedback provided by the committee was reflected in the final report, which was then approved by myself on the 6th of June 2025, before ratification on the 13th of June under Cabinet member decisions. The Select Committee comments were part of this report, and for transparency they were that the Children's, Families and Education Select Committee note the attainment gap between non-disadvantaged and disadvantaged young people in Hillingdon, but is reassured that steps are being taken to address this. Furthermore, the committee acknowledges Key Stage 4 outcomes were above the national average but behind regional and statistical neighbours. Equally, at Key Stage 2, Hillingdon outcomes continue to be better than the national average but behind regional outcomes. With early years and Key Stage 5, Hillingdon performs slightly behind national and regional outcomes. Despite this, the committee notes the need for close monitoring and are reassured that steps are being taken to address these attainment gaps. It was agreed this level of scrutiny was appropriate for the report and is in line with the Council's constitution. The paper is for noting due to it being its historical data, so that's the reason why it didn't go to full Cabinet this year.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Sweeting, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Why were the comments on this report from the Children, Families and Education Select Committee, a scrutinising committee of this council, namely, and I quote, and you've quoted some, that Key Stage 5, Key Stage 4, Key Stage 2 and early years results for Hillingdon are all below regional outcomes, end quote, not available to residents in any public documents published by this council?
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you again, Councillor Sweeting. What I've just quoted out was what you agreed as part of your committee, so that's where that is. And with regards to it not being a public document, it was a public document when it went to your select committee. So it is there, it's actually on the website, and it's readily available for anybody to look at the document, fully available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien.
Comments.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I didn't catch that. Right, next question, 7.1, Councillor Dennis to Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will the Cabinet member please provide an update on the financial improvement programme which was initiated following the budget setting at February Council?
Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Dennis for your question. The financial improvement programme, which I announced at the time of budget setting last February, is designed to modernise and streamline Finance Department working practices while enhancing their cost effectiveness, to improve the accuracy and effectiveness of budget setting and monitoring, and to ensure the cleanliness and accuracy of the 24-25 financial year outturn. A number of measures are being carried out within what is now referred to as the Finance Modernisation Programme, which is a collaborative process involving both our own finance team, external consultants, and with oversight from the Local Government Association. These initiatives included the following: a review of budget monitoring and forecasting procedures and the generation of recommendations as to standard working practices, a series of structural amendments as to the new Oracle Fusion EPM system, which is used for budget monitoring, a review and proposed revision of the Finance Department operating structure, including an assessment of the skills, knowledge and capabilities within this team, and a detailed review of the closing position at the 31st of March 2025, which will in fact give rise to a number of adjustments to the projected position which was reported at last February's budget setting. In overall terms, this programme is now well advanced. However, whilst it is now functional, the ultimate Oracle EPM system is not expected to be finalised in its anticipated state until the autumn of 2025. In addition, a number of other projects have been undertaken by the officer team, and these are as follows. Firstly, an in-depth review of the high needs block within the dedicated schools grant, with a view to the achievement of in-year parity. To date, this review has identified annual savings amounting to £14.6 million, and current projections indicate that a break-even position should be achieved by 2027-28. This work and the level of achievement has been highly commended by the Department for Education. I should also mention at this time that the statutory override for deficits on the dedicated schools grants have now been extended by the Government from March 2026 to March 2028. In addition, detailed work has been carried out by corporate directors, heads of service and budget holders in connection with the finance team in order to identify necessary steps required in order to verify and deliver the savings programme outlined within the MTFS. In addition, further savings measures are being identified and developed. The Council's corporate management team has also had a continuing commitment to the reappraisal and streamlining of service delivery models. The adoption of digital technology and artificial intelligence has already generated numerous efficiencies, and these are being supplemented by an extensive review of outsourcing and external contracts and the procurement processes which sit around these contracts. Mr. Mayor, members will of course by now have heard that a permanent appointment of a new Section 151 officer has been made. And I should add that the successful candidate has extensive experience of the delivery of financial improvement measures. In normal circumstances, I would expect the finalisation of the outturn for the prior financial year to be reported at June Cabinet. However, in 2025, this has been delayed by the processes which I've already described. The results of this work will be reported by me in July Cabinet. This inevitably has also had an impact upon the availability of financial information to provide to select committees over a short period in the recent past. Finally, members will be aware that it is customary for no budget monitoring procedures to be carried out for month 1 of each financial year. It is also customary for month 2 budget monitoring to be reported at July Cabinet, and this will take place as usual. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goddard. Councillor Dennis, supplementary? Okay. So straight on to question 7.6 from Councillor Bells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Rural Activities Garden Centre is described as a hidden gem and for over 40 years has provided vital life-changing services for our adults with learning difficulties. Can the Cabinet member explain why he did not seek alternative providers like the Council did for the Beck Theatre and the early years nursery centres so that it can remain open?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Bells for his question. I'm glad that Councillor Bells is now at last a conversion to the principle that we might be able to do things differently. I seem to remember in this chamber his strong opposition to both the move of Uxbridge Library, the Beck Theatre, early years centres before that, all of which have been done satisfactorily and work really well. So there are precedents for moving things. The Council has been financially supporting this site, and in the last financial year that was some £137,000. My colleague Councillor Palmer has already detailed the extensive work that is going on to ensure that those who were users of this site are supported, and we do believe that we can achieve a better outcome here at the Civic Centre and at the same time run the Council operations in a more efficient manner. So thank you.
Can I ask members, I'm sorry, can I ask members of the public please to stop interrupting the proceedings of this meeting? I do understand feelings run high, but please let's hear the speakers. Thank you. Councillor Bells, do you have a supplementary question?
I certainly do, Mr. Mayor. The Council's decision to rush through the decision to close the Rural Activities Garden Centre shop is highly concerning, as normal checks and balances have been ignored. Is this because the Conservatives do not have much time left before the Section 114 knocks on the door?
Councillor Lavery.
Well, I love a question with imagination, Councillor Bells, and you have surpassed yourself on this occasion. No, that is not the case. The Cabinet report was prepared in the normal way. We have taken the decision to close a loss-making retail operation as well as make extensive provision for the users of that site. And I think that was clearly set out in the Cabinet report that was presented in June, and I know Councillor Bianco on that night, who is very familiar with this matter, detailed that at great length in that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery. We come on now to question 7.9. Councillor Punger. I do beg your pardon. It must be the heat in here. I beg your pardon. Councillor, how can I omit my colleague Councillor Smallwood? Councillor Smallwood, 7.4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet member confirm that Hillingdon Council is not levying parking charges on those visiting Breakspear Crematorium to pay their respects to their deceased relatives.
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smallwood, for your question. I am delighted to confirm that is not the case. This is an online rumour, and I do wish those spreading it would decease. The car park at Breakspear Crematorium is large and divided by barriers. The parking team have taken responsibility for a small area of this car park, which is separate from the main area and used on weekends where Rice at Lido is expected to be very busy. We would expect to charge for that. Those are visitors to the Lido, and we've already had a question on that matter earlier tonight. Those visiting the crematorium to pay their respects to their deceased relatives would normally park in the lower car park, and that is not charged. There are no machines there, and indeed we use a smaller area for Lido parking on the 2 Sundays of the year where we expect the maximum number of visitors, that being Easter Sunday if it falls within season and Father's Day. Thank you, Councillor Smallwood, for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Smallwood, do you have a supplementary? Okay. So on now to 7.9, Councillor Plunger. Thank you, Councillor Plunger, and Councillor Lavery is going to respond in Councillor Tuckwell's absence, I understand.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Plunger, for your question. I am responding on behalf of Councillor Tuckwell, and of course this was a process that I started when I held this Cabinet portfolio. Cabinet is committed to ensuring a robust, effective and fair process is followed to determine whether to introduce additional licensing requirements for houses in multiple occupation, HMO, and if so, where in the borough. To introduce additional licensing of HMOs requires robust evidence of need, consultation on proposals, approval of the final scheme prior to implementation. These typically take 12 to 18 months to introduce an additional licensing scheme where the need is evidenced. The Council is on track following the approval by Cabinet in October 24 to commence the process to collect evidence and consider a scheme. The collation and analysis of needs data is underway, and the public consultation on proposals is scheduled to commence in early autumn. Subject to the outcome of the consultation process, we are on track to present the proposed scheme to Cabinet in February 2026. Failure to adhere to the required steps, and a number of local authorities, including some locally, have fallen foul of this, by short-cutting process, including the failure to complete robust assessment of need, risks any scheme being challenged in the courts, delaying implementation and significant costs for the Council. In the meantime, all issues and concerns about the management of HMOs which the Council become aware continue to be actioned robustly, including enforcement action against landlords where this is required.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Plunger, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mr Mayor. Can the Cabinet member confirm that any delays to the implementation of extending the licensing of the HMO scheme are not due to this Council avoiding paying licence fees for the HMOs it is conveniently converting for temporary accommodation?
Councillor Lavery.
On behalf of Councillor Tuckwell, I can confirm that is not the case.
Thank you. We then come to question 7.7, submitted by Councillor Banerjee to Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can the Cabinet member please update Council on the rollout of the garden waste subscription scheme?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Banerjee, for your question. At the time of writing this response, the subscriptions to the scheme are progressing very positively. Some 18,000 subscriptions have been received, generating £1.6 million worth of income, with a significant number that have increased this week following the launch of collections. The marketing and promotion of this scheme will continue, and we expect subscriptions and income will continue to rise, and this will of course support the Council medium-term financial plan. The Council prepared for the rollout of the scheme across all of its services, including waste, IT, communications, finance and the customer hub, to ensure the service is delivered as effectively as possible. I'd like to take this opportunity to record my public thanks to the officer team for the extremely hard work they put into this, which has resulted this week in a very successful first week. And that is all. We will continue to monitor progress and obviously make any adjustments we need to make as we go, but we are very pleased with where we've got to so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Banerjee? No? Okay, so on to questions 7-10. This is Councillor Mand to Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member please explain the absence and delays of budget monitoring reports and financial reports to Cabinet and Select Committee meetings?
Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mann, for your question. I'm sure Councillor Mann will acknowledge that I did cover this subject in my response to Councillor Dennis's question, so I have nothing further to add to that. Thank you.
Councillor Mand, you're entitled to a supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the Cabinet Member for Finance accept that regardless of who holds the finance portfolio, the Council is in such a serious financial position that it may in effect already be bankrupt and meet the criteria for a Section 114 notice, and that this reality is being withheld from the administration's backbench members?
Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Mann for your question. First of all, I can absolutely confirm that this authority is experiencing financial pressures. There's been no secret about that. That absolutely continues to be the case. There is not a possibility that this council will be required to file for Section 114. The situation is that I will be reporting, as I've already said, to Cabinet, and that of course is something which is in the public domain as to the current update in terms of the Council's financial position. So I have nothing to add further at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. So we come on then to 7.5, question from Councillor Burrows to Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the Cabinet Member consider the decision to relocate Uxbridge Library to have been successful?
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Burrows for the question. The Council is very pleased with the results of relocating the library. It has been a success despite the doom merchants opposite. And I know, I don't want to ruin an opportunity for a protest, but it has been very successful. We have created a fully DDA compliant building on one floor that everybody can access. And that in itself is a strong achievement. The children's library is enclosed, making it safer for families to use while minimising disruption to other library users. Book issues are up. Library membership at Uxbridge is up. We have hosted art exhibitions and have autumn bookings for the study area. This library is of course more cost effective to operate and enhances the Civic Centre campus which we have been developing over recent years. And this has added another valuable service to that campus. Further improvements are coming, including the new museum, meeting room and multi-purpose space, and this will increase the number of facilities and space available to residents on the site. Thank you.
Have you a supplementary, Councillor Burrows? Thank you. So on then to question 7. Thank you. On to question 7.8, Councillor Bennett to Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following the CQC inspection, which rated adult social care as good, please can the Cabinet Member provide further details on the service?
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bennett, for your question. Following the Care Quality Commission's inspection, which rated adults Hillingdon Adult Social Care Services as good, the service has continued to build on its success through a series of strategic initiatives designed to embed quality, strengthen resilience and deliver meaningful outcomes for residents. There have been some in-house inspections of service, including Shared Lives and Hillingdon Domiciliary Care Service. Both were rated good in all areas, with some features of the Shared Lives service noted as follows. This service is exceptional at maximising the effectiveness of people's care and communication. Of people's care and treatment by assessing and reviewing their health care, well-being and communication needs with them. The staff are very proud of their work with the Shared Lives carers, and this is reflected in the outcome of the report. The service has refreshed the charging policy, ensuring that the financial assessments and information is timely, supporting residents to manage their finances appropriately. The implementation of our SARA on the website to support residents to help themselves with technology is a very positive step forward with the website for residents to access. In the process of completing a tech-enabled care plan for adult social care, which we will bring to committee and cabinet review later in the year. An early intervention review has been to select committee for a major review, and that is ongoing. Following the inspection, we have appointed a dedicated principal social worker who continues to maintain best practice in social work, who adheres and maintains our statutory practice and quality links with London and wider to ensure that we continue to maintain best practice and train and retain staff, which is currently very successful. Despite continued pressure from demand and budget pressures, this has been a developmental positive year for adult social care. Excuse my stumbling, Mr. Mayor, it's the heat. I just would like to take this opportunity to thank all those involved in adult social care, particularly our Director, Sandra Taylor. It has been quite a successful year for adult social care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Councillor Bennett, have you a supplementary? With that, then, we move on to motions to Council. The first of which is 8.4, to be put by Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. There has been considerable recent media coverage of the cost to this council and hence to its residents arising from the exceptionally high number of asylum seekers housed in hotels in our borough and now being evicted at an ever-increasing rate by the Home Office. This motion is not to complain about that number, but to ensure that the people who have been admitted to this country for refuge are given the support they need, provided nationally and not locally. Hillingdon has a strong record of supporting asylum seekers and welcoming refugees, and it accepts as a port authority that this will be a disproportionate requirement for us over other councils. In itself, this is not the issue, but the extent of that additional burden cannot be without limit. Since the COVID pandemic, I believe that limit has been broken by the Home Office, who have concentrated the accommodation of asylum seekers in hotels around Heathrow. Whilst the government promised to bring down unlawful immigration by smashing the trafficking gangs, we have seen the reverse, with record numbers having arrived unlawfully in the last 12 months. The government has been true to its commitment to speed up the processing of asylum claims, and whilst that is good for the claimant, it is at the cost to this council. The pace of evictions from Hillingdon's hotels has increased to such an extent that the Home Office is now a main cause of homelessness in our borough. These evictions do not appear to be drawing to a close as the over-reliance on Hillingdon's hotels by the Home Office continues, and as vacancies are being created, so they appear to be filled. Whether this is because of the high number of new arrivals or as a consequence of the government stopping the use of hotels elsewhere in the country, we cannot say, as the councils are largely kept in the dark about the situation. It is a positive development that this week the Home Office Minister, Angela Eagle, has pledged to be more open with councils after agreeing that the department's communication with us was no longer fit for purpose. The Council has been in discussion with the Government about the impact of the Council's budget of asylum seekers for years, and in the past we have received multi-million-pound payments that have been made recognising the exceptional costs that we have suffered. Most recent discussions commenced with the previous Government, and we have only recently been told by the present Government that it will not compensate the Council for the £11 million exceptional expenditure that it incurred up to the end of last year, nor the £5 million that it expects to incur this year and an additional £5 million next. The decision has a material impact on the financial security of the Council, but more importantly, it means that Hillingdon's residents must expect to pick up all future costs of supporting those evicted from hotels by the Home Office. Hillingdon Conservatives believe this to be unreasonable and unsustainable, and is seeking the support of all members to press Government to reconsider their position and for the Home Office to cease evictions from our hotels without first having secured the necessary future support and accommodation. This could be by way of direct purchase by the Home Office or by way of resettlement scheme through all other authorities. Because the voice of councillors is not readily heard by Government, my motion calls on the three members of Parliament to help us secure the payment by the Government of the £16 million that I have said we have spent to date, that no former asylum seeker is evicted from our hotels without the necessary support and accommodation having been arranged, the cost of which to be shared equitably nationally, and the funding of port authorities is commensurate with the additional responsibilities that they carry on behalf of the nation in this time of more easy movement and transfer of people. These outcomes are more likely to be secured by cross-party support. It is beyond the scope of this borough to continue alone to provide the support to such a high number of fallen asylum seekers, and it is up to the country now to step forward. To vote against this motion would show disregard for the facts, disregard for the unfair financial burden on our residents, and disregard for the future welfare of our refugees. I move the motion as published. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Is that seconded?
Mr. Mayor, I second and reserve my right to speak at the end.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. Speakers, Councillor Gardner. I don't think I can. There is a roving mic because some of the table mics aren't being picked up by the live stream. Councillor Plunger has one already, so perhaps we can improvise. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think I must clarify a few things for those who are still confused about what this council's obligations are to refugees. And to clarify also, a former asylum seeker is a refugee, so please stop referring to them as former asylum seekers. A refugee is someone whose claim for protection has been acknowledged after a lengthy assessment of his or her case by the Home Office. An asylum seeker is someone who has applied for refugee status but is waiting for a decision by the Home Office. No council houses asylum seekers. But I'd like to add that had this Conservative-led council lobbied the previous government and insisted that the Home Office worked a great deal quicker to get the asylum claims processed, then there would be no need for what I regard as this divisive motion. The council gives advice and support to refugees who have been given asylum, but single refugees do not fall under the definition of priority need. This council is not under any duty to provide interim accommodation to anyone who is not in priority need. Only refugees' families or vulnerable individuals get help, and it's usually advice about how to find somewhere in the private sector or directed to temporary accommodation, which may, as we all know, may be a long way from Hillingdon. Over the last year, this council has helped 28 families, 28, and about 10 single clients with priority need into private sector accommodation. I hope that explains the situation, and while I'll not be voting for this.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. And we move on now to Councillor Mills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome this motion this evening as the burden of the Labour government's asylum cost that is having to be paid for by Hillingdon taxpayers is quite frankly unfair. The government's failure to act on it and have such disregard for Hillingdon residents is quite frankly appalling. As the leader has already explained, we have already had to use £16 million of council taxpayers' money on accommodation. Not through choice, but because the law compels councils to prioritise asylum accommodation over the needs of local homeless families, key workers and residents in urgent housing need, a situation that is not of our making. Once again, the Labour government are making others pay for their mistakes. Not only is this decision to accommodate so many asylum seekers in our borough a huge drain on local resources, it is also having a damaging effect on the social cohesion of some of our communities, with large numbers of residents noticing and feeling a change in their local area. Where we as elected members must be mindful, though, is that while this can be a hugely emotive subject for some, we must continue to make the case for Hillingdon to be fairly reimbursed for the costs we have incurred to date and continue to incur. What we must not do is allow those who do not hold positions of responsibility to ignore the seriousness of the problem and engage in irresponsible gesture politics, discussions and protests, and look to pit communities against one another. We believe that Hillingdon taxpayers should be protected from funding national government immigration failures, as well as arguing for a fairer distribution of asylum seekers across the country. Just because we have Heathrow Airport in our borough should not mean that Hillingdon is used as a dumping ground, with us currently forced to accommodate 1 in 10 asylum seekers who arrive at Heathrow. Tonight, opposition members have a choice. They can support this and be on the side of Hillingdon residents, or they can vote to protect their own personal interests and keep their regional London Labour masters happy. They abandoned Hillingdon residents previously and supported the ULEZ expansion into our borough. Tonight will demonstrate who they are really here to serve. Is it the residents or is it themselves? In closing, Mr Mayor, I note the attempts already made by David Simmons MP to bring this matter to the highest level within Parliament. However, to date, these have regrettably fallen on the deaf ears of the government. I hope this motion receives support tonight so that it will enable this council to explore all further possible options to challenge this disproportionate burden placed on our borough, including possible legal action to protect the interests of Hillingdon residents. We should be refunded of the significant costs that we've had to incur, and we would much rather have used those funds for alternative purposes that benefit residents of Hillingdon, local people. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Mills. We move on to Councillor Davis now, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I stand here tonight in full support of this motion brought forward by the Leader of the Council, because the truth is we need to stop pretending this situation is okay. Right now, communities like Hayes and Harlington are being pushed to the limit. We're bearing the brunt of a broken asylum and refugee system, while the Labour government shrugs its shoulders and looks the other way. Let's not sugarcoat this. This has already cost Hillingdon Council £16 million, and it is expected to hit £21 million by the end of this financial year. That's money meant for our residents, for the social care services, the streets, their green spaces, diverted to cover a crisis that's not our making. Over 2,300 asylum seekers, or refugees if you'd like to call them that, are currently housed in our local hotels. That's more than 4.5 times the London average. It's completely out of balance and completely unsustainable. Yet the Labour government, we've seen no funding, no planning and no real support. As a Conservative councillor for Hayes and Harlington, let me be clear. I will always stand up for our residents, and I will not sit by while they're expected to foot the bill for a national problem dumped on our doorstep. And let's be honest, Hillingdon Conservatives haven't been afraid to challenge our own party when we've had to, whether it be Heathrow expansion or HS2. We stood our ground when our borough was being overlooked, because that's what putting residents first is. It's not a slogan. So tonight I have a question for the Labour group. Are you going to do the same? Are you going to stand up to your party in Westminster? Are you going to stay quiet like your MP Danny Bills? Because it's easier, or because you're worried about upsetting the people higher up? Let me say it straight. Will you stand with this council and the people of Hillingdon, or will you stay silent, or are you scared of being deselected? because our residents are watching. They're tired of excuses, they're tired of silence, and they're done with smoke and mirrors. This motion isn't about playing party politics. It's about fairness, it's about protecting our community, and it's about making sure that the government, red or blue, takes a proper responsibility and gives us the funding that we need to cope with these pressures. So tonight, let's be clear, let's send a clear message to Keir Starmer and his complaints officer, Rachel Reeves. It's time to pay your bill. Let's let them know Hillingdon isn't a dumping ground for the broken asylum and refugee system. The residents of Hillingdon deserve better, and I am proud to support this motion.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Davis. We move now to Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to oppose this motion because it's misleading in nature, scaremongering, and is an attempt to divide communities. This motion claims that the council experienced financial difficulty because of the amount of former asylum seekers that are being housed and supported by the borough. Mr. Mayor, that's simply not true. There's a failure at any point to mention how many former asylum seekers, refugees, have been housed and supported by the council. How many does the council have a duty towards? How many have been turned away by the council? It's also a failure to acknowledge the increased funding the Labour government has provided the council through the Asylum Dispersal Grant, which increased from £250 per person in 2022 to £1,200 per person in March of this year by the Labour government. This is a staggering 380% increase of government funding given per person to the council. So while the leader of the council, along with the former Conservative MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, regularly call on Labour MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip to lobby the Labour government, why did they not lobby with such passion the Conservative government then? It's because, and in Councillor Edwards' own words in this chamber, we don't lobby government. What he meant by that was he doesn't lobby a Conservative government. Instead of taking accountability, the Conservatives are choosing to stoke fear and division. They're scapegoating people who have fled war, persecution, and unimaginable trauma. These are human beings, not political footballs. And our residents, decent, compassionate people, deserve better than this cynical attempt to pit neighbour against neighbour. Yes, Hillingdon has faced disproportionate pressure as a port authority. That's been clear for some time. But let's ask the real question. Why wasn't the administration fighting for resources years ago? Why did they accept government policy after government policy that shifted the burden to councils without funding, whilst their own MPs sat on their hands in Westminster? And now they call on MPs to fix a problem they've all helped create. That's not leadership, that's abdication of responsibility.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. We can now go to Councillor Ahmad Walana, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I applaud the actions that this administration is taking to stand up for Hillingdon residents. The cost of accommodation of asylum seekers in our borough has reached critical levels, and I do not believe it is fair for our residents to continue to have their council tax used for this. The national government forces us to provide accommodation for these people, but they do nothing to help us with the cost of this service. How is this fair for us? How is this fair for Hillingdon taxpayers? We are elected to stand up for our residents, and I support this motion to demand that we be refunded for the substantial costs imposed on us by the government. I want to ensure that Hillingdon residents are protected. This motion demonstrates that Hillingdon Conservatives put their own residents first, ahead of those seeking to enter our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmad Balana. We now go to Councillor Punger, please. Right. Do we have a rogue device? Okay, Councillor Punger.
Sorry?
Well, Councillor Puncher, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, as someone who has experienced the racism from this rhetoric, I express my strong opposition to this motion. While the issue of supporting our asylum seekers is undoubtedly a significant one for our borough, I believe this motion represents a concerning return to past, unsuccessful strategies, compounded by a troubling lack of transparent financial accountability. Let us not forget that this is not the first time Hillingdon Council has pursued such a course. In 2007, under a Conservative administration, the Council lost a judicial review against the then Labour government regarding the funding of services for unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, citing then, as now, its unique position with Heathrow Airport. It begs the question of what lessons were learnt from that experience. My deepest concern lies with the shifting and unsubstantiated cost figures being presented in the press, Hillingdon people, and in recent council communications to Green West subscribers, and here today. We've heard estimates ranging from 4 million, then 5 million, and incredibly this figure recently has escalated to 16 million, all within a matter of weeks. Such drastic and unexplained variances severely undermine public trust and raise serious questions about the financial health of this council, particularly given recent revelations about other fiscal discrepancies. Mr. Mayor, it does make me wonder if these figures relate to the shortfall of the £34 million worth of savings this administration needs to make this year, as financial consultants find more and more black holes in the council finances. Only time will tell. I find it troubling that while this administration not only overlooks the Conservative MP for Ruislip North and Pinner regularly, while publicly calling for the Labour MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip to lobby the government on this issue, but consistently disregards opportunities to engage with him directly. He did, after all, secure double the funding for the new Hillingdon Hospital, and so therefore meeting him would be worthwhile. Responsible engagement by at least responding to his offers of meetings rather than mere political posturing in this chamber tonight is essential for truly addressing complex challenges like this. Finally, Mr. Mayor, it is a matter of public record that under a Conservative government, and indeed within this council's own Hillingdon people itself, this administration has previously welcomed and pledged support for refugees with headlines such as Council pledges support to help refugees from Afghanistan with, what was it, £250 from the government at that time. So, this stark contrast leads me to question whether this motion is truly about a genuine financial crisis, or if asylum seekers are, regrettably, being used as a convenient scapegoat for what appears to be deeper issues of financial mismanagement with this administration.
Thank you, Councillor Puncher. We come to Councillor Speaking now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak against this motion, which, like two other motions before us this evening, is all about money, or should I say the lack of it. Charging for green waste, the closure of the Rural Activities Garden Centre and this motion are all about Hillingdon's Conservative administration failing utterly to keep a tight hold on what it has in the bank and what it spends. And now when it is in the financial dippy-doo-dahs, we have the issue of the cost of asylum seekers being brought to the Chamber as a motion to try to explain the reasons why this council is in such a financial black hole. However, we need to ask why now, when this issue has been with us for many years. When the Children, Families and Education Select Committee learned of this council's frustration in 2021, 22, 23 and 24 over monies available from the Home Office not being sufficient, Hillingdon's Conservative administration huffed and puffed, but did it bring a motion to council asking its 3 MPs to batter the Conservative government into stumping up more funds? No, even though one of its own MPs just happened to be Prime Minister. So what's changed? Well, 2 things. Firstly, the council's coffers are empty and the savings needed to balance the books are higher than at any time, and with the report from the independent finance officer so scathing as to be the way which this council's finance has been managed. So who to blame? It can't be the previous Conservative government, can't be this Conservative administration. So it's the second thing which has changed. The government is now Labour. So let's blame them. Also, let's use the tactics of red top newspapers and blame asylum seekers. Let's push the blame button. Not our fault, Gov. Not the fault of the Tory government. Let's blame the new lot. But wait, what about the evidence, as stats don't lie? There are fewer asylum seekers in Hillingdon before, and extra money from this Labour government has been provided. So this motion has been submitted with widely inaccurate costs touted to try to explain away this Conservative Council's complete financial incompetence. A very dangerous motion which is both morally as well as financially bankrupt.
Thank you. Before we return to Councillor Bianco with the second of the motion, are there any other speakers, please? Don't appear to be. With that, I'll return to Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, we've heard the Leader of the Council very eloquently set out the very serious issue of government underfunding of the asylum pressures that our borough is facing, forced upon us by national government policy. But what do we see from the opposition? Deflection, denial, obfuscation. 5 million a year, as you will have already heard, is the total cost of our library and cultural services for a year. But we're being forced to spend that amount of money bailing out a government that's all at sea. Mr. Mayor, I should also point out that the figures you have heard this evening only relate to those who have been evicted from hotels. It does not include the cost of Jagosian nationals, who are also arriving in large numbers. Once again, as the result of Labour government's policy and the surrender of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Many of these arrivals are also afforded housing and other support under the law, and we expect this to continue to cost Hillingdon taxpayers 1.2 million a year, with the government only funding, wait for it, the first 10 days after arrival. What exactly is the government expecting to happen after only 10 days? There is only one answer, and that is that the residents of Hillingdon will pay. How cynical is that? Since July 2024, Hillingdon Council has seen more than 335 individuals arrive requiring our help, with 120 arriving in 1 week alone. Now, Mr. Mayor, we have all seen the new Deputy Leader of the opposition's political ambition at play, which our colleagues in the new Hayes Independent Labour Party can attest to. To use such an important issue as this debt owed to residents for selfish political gain is perhaps unsurprising, but nonetheless disappointing. Furthermore, in a recent interview and in this meeting tonight, Councillor Punja questions the Council's presentation of asylum costs and their legitimacy, saying they were, and I quote, plucked out of the air. This is frankly astonishing. These costs have been calculated and verified in many occurrences from the government's own data, accepted by numerous national media outlets, and are somehow not acceptable to Hillingdon Labour or to Councillor Punja. This is not only a deflection from the issue, but it is also illuminating. It shines a beacon onto who should be trusted with the residents' hard-earned money and who shouldn't. Frankly, Mr. Mayor, we know that there are several committed socialists on that side of the chamber, and to borrow another phrase, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. A saying from the great late Margaret Thatcher. We must remember that our role as council members is to advocate for our constituents, to seek transparency and to ensure our community
Councillor
is properly
Bianco,
supported.
could you wind up, please?
I second the motion.
Right, so now we return to Councillor Edwards as the move for the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I bitterly regret the fact that the Labour colleagues are not prepared to stand with us and stand with their residents to ask for government funding for what is a national responsibility. In answer to Councillor Gardner, I accept the distinction between asylum seeker and refugee, and that is why I referred to former asylum seekers to differentiate those that have arrived unlawfully in this country, being placed in the hotels and then released into our borough for ongoing support and accommodation. as opposed to refugees who may arrive from other routes. For example, the Chagossians, Afghanistans, people from Hong Kong and many other nations that are turning to the United Kingdom. What I didn't want to do, and what I didn't do in my speech, was to give numbers. Because if we put those numbers in the public domain, my fear is that you will exacerbate the problem. And that is exactly what you are choosing to do by insisting these people don't exist. You are insisting to say that there wasn't a £573,000 shortfall in the year 2021, or a £1.715 million shortfall in 21-22, or a £2.273 million shortfall in 22-23. The following year, 1.665, and this year we expect it to be, last year, 5.085, and the same again this year. We have the numbers, we have the data. Let me give an example of some of the costs of having asylum seekers in our hotels. The government sponsored an inspection to come down to look at the standards of the hotels and raised concerns about, I think it was 30, maybe 31 individuals that they referred to the council as being underage. That was on a Friday and a Monday. Over those 4 days, our number of looked after children increased in the region of about 20%. That placed an intolerable burden on our officers, who not only had to find the emergency accommodation as support for those young people, but then had to conduct the age assessments. The outcome, 30 of them were returned to the hotel. 1 remained in our care. These are the unhidden costs that exist that you deny. And that is an absolute shame, and I think a disgrace, that you are hiding behind the fact that you believe it is motivated entirely by the financial challenges that this council exists owing to underfunding generally. I think it is a disgrace. Yeah. Let me close there because I don't want to add more petrol to the fire, Mr. Mayor. The last thing I want to do is to have vulnerable people targeted. What I want is this chamber to come together to support those people, to say, give Hillingdon the funding it needs, it deserves, to provide the ongoing support and accommodation that the government's processes are requiring us to provide. These are unfunded, come out of the council's pockets, which means it comes out of residents' pockets. Thank you. Yeah.
Right, now, thank you. We come to the vote on this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. For the benefit of our guests in the public gallery, a recorded vote has been asked for, so instead of a vote by show of hands, I shall ask each member in turn in alphabetical order whether they are voting for the motion as moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Bianco, against the motion or abstaining. Starting with Councillor Abbey.
Against the motion.
Councillor Ahmad Walana.
For the motion.
Councillor Banerjee. Councillor Bassett. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Batt. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Burles.
Against.
Councillor Burrows. Councillor Roy Chamdell. Councillor Chubadar. Not in the room. Councillor Curling. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dennis. Councillor Dott. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Farley. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gaelic. Councillor Garg. Councillor Gill. Councillor Goddard. Councillor Gohill. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Islam.
Against.
Councillor Kaur. Councillor Lakmana. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Makwana. Councillor Mand. Councillor Martin. Councillor Mathers. Councillor Douglas Mills. Councillor Richard Mills. Councillor Money. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Nelson West. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Punja. Councillor Riley. Councillor Sansapuri. Councillor Singh. Councillor Smallwood. Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Sweeting. Madam Deputy Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
For.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That motion is carried by 26 votes to 22.
Thank you. And with that, we move on to the next motion On the agenda paper, 8.2, Councillor Mathers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Conservative administration made the decision to go against their own flagship manifesto pledge, their badge of honour policy, and their own commitments made in this very chamber to introduce collection subscription charge for green waste. Councillor Doug Mills declared in this very chamber in July 2023, the Conservatives, approach guarantees free weekly collections, including the green waste, which is a vital part of the service we offer. This council made it clear on that day and made a public commitment to free weekly bin collections, including recycling and green waste. Even more so, we explicitly rejected the idea of charging residents for garden waste. It took less than 2 years to bin that promise. The ambition of this council was to raise £2.5 million to balance their books, requiring an estimated 35,000 households to subscribe. And despite a huge public outcry during the consultation period, Hillingdon decided to roll it out anyway. This knee-jerk decision by the Conservatives was made at the 11th hour in February's budget meeting, drawn up on the back of an envelope with no consultation at the time and based on a budget with poor estimates that were not sufficiently robust, to quote the Section 25 report from the CFO of the time. We are likely some distance away from achieving the numbers required to balance the books. So what this motion calls for is an accurate financial accounting, robust monitoring and good governance, everything that is required according to external auditors. This can only be achieved effectively and responsibly by ensuring that the relevant select committee is scrutinising this policy at regular periods throughout the financial year. This motion is not just about expressing concern, it's about demanding oversight. It calls for the Cabinet to refer this policy implementation to the relevant select committee so they can scrutinise its effectiveness in delivering the savings it claims to deliver. This is essential. Scrutiny committees exist for a reason. They are not a formality. They are a vital tool for ensuring the decisions made by Cabinet are evidence-based, transparent and in the public interest. We must use them, not just now but consistently, to monitor the impact of this and other cost-saving measures. Because if we do not hold this chaotic administration to account, if we do not use the scrutiny mechanisms available to us, then we are complicit in allowing these failures to continue to be unchecked. We owe it to our residents to ensure that every pound saved is a pound well spent. We owe it to them to ensure promises made in this chamber are not casually discarded when it becomes politically or financially inconvenient. This is about more than bins. It's about showing our residents that we are listening, that we care, and that we will not allow broken promises to go unchallenged. I urge all members of the Council to support this motion. Let us use the powers of scrutiny to hold this administration to account, to ensure that mistakes of the past are not repeated. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's seconded and I reserve my right.
Thank you. Okay, speakers. Councillor Islam, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This month, Hillingdon Council has made a catastrophic manifesto U-turn by introducing a new garden £70 subscription, going against its pledge of free weekly green waste collection in our borough. This subscription charge forces against to opt in and pay extra for a service that was once included in our council tax, and it is not even an annual charges. This subscription only lasts for 9 months and will have to be renewed in March 2026. Currently, residents have no idea what this charge will be increased to. The troubling pattern of this Conservative-led council is to make knee-jerk decisions, introducing fees and charges that will then be subject to annual rises. This council claims this is about sustainability and cost recovery, but let's be honest, this is just the latest serious stress taxes on the resident because this administration cannot manage its finance. That needs scrutiny, that is accountability. Let's look at the bigger picture, Mr. Mayor. Over the past few years, Hillingdon has steadily increased the cost of living for its residents. Parking permit, for example, have become increasingly expensive, not just a cost natural admin covering fee, but a jaw-dropping £75 that increased this year to £84 for first vehicle and £120 second vehicle, and so on. In 2023, Mr. Mayor, this council implemented a staggering 30% hike in fees charges across a wide range of services, including hall hire, nursery fees, community facilities. And since 2024, they have committed to raising fees and charges by 5% annually. How is this fair, Mr. Mayor? Residents are being asked to pay more and more to get less each year from Conservative administration. It is not what residents expect from a council that claims to be on their side. And if the Conservative cannot make that planned income they expect to make on this matter, then it will mean more charges to residents. Let's send a clear message today that resident voice matter, that scrutiny matters, that promises still means something in this council. Please support this motion. Thank you.
No other. Oh, Councillor Sweeting.
I speak in support of the motion. Promises on green waste made in this chamber by this Conservative administration have now been broken. Scorn was ladled on the Labour group when we had the temerity to suggest that green waste would not in future be part of the universal waste service. And here we are with affirmation and the reaffirmation of this administration that no change would be made, laying in the dust of broken promises. Trust is a delicate thread. Once broken, it is difficult to be woven back. And trust in this Conservative administration is at a very low ebb, with so many of our residents saying, and I quote, "This policy has been brought in by stealth. We were kept intentionally in the dark. It is an under-the-radar policy. Why am I paying more for less? I could go on, but won't." So what will this policy actually deliver? Will it help to fill the financial black hole that this Conservative administration has found itself in? Or will it lead to consequences which could actually cost money due to residents disposing of their green waste in other ways? Hillingdon already has a black plague of fly tipping in all areas of the borough. Will we now have a green plague with green waste being disguised in black sacks with rotting waste scattered over pavements, verges, into rivers and filling waste bins? I hope not, but angry residents are already sharing suggestions. Collecting green waste fly tipping could actually cost the council more than the subscriptions received, so it could well be a perfect green storm. However, the greatest and more serious consequences for this Conservative administration is that the trust of its residents has been broken on the back of grass cuttings, twigs and branches. I support the motion as it will at least shine a light on the unforeseen consequences this policy is likely to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Councillor Corr now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In July 2023, this chamber boldly declared our commitment to free weekly bin collections and firmly rejected charging residents for garden waste collection. Today, the Cabinet wants us to believe that £70 is the new definition of free. Funny how this Cabinet blames Labour for forcing difficult decisions when it's actually the same long-term Tory financial mess locally and nationally that needs fixing. And this council has more support from Labour than it ever got from the Tories. Now let's talk about the consultation, a masterpiece in democratic performance art. Over 8,000 residents responded. 79% opposed the charges. When asked what's fair, 88% said less than 70%. So naturally, the Cabinet chose £70. It's like asking, what's your favorite color? And responding, well, 88% said red, so we are choosing blue. The residents' predicted response? 4.9% said they'd fly tip their garden waste. 26% said they would dump it in general waste. 12% would burn it. And let's not forget the 1,181 residents who signed a petition against it. The Cabinet has acknowledged that garden waste disposal costs £40 per tonne, while general waste costs £146 per tonne. So when residents dump their garden waste into black bags, as 26% plan to do, we'll pay nearly 4 times more to dispose it off. But here's the punchline. Only 17% said they'd actually subscribe to this bargain service. The Cabinet expects £2.5 million from a service that 83% of respondents plan to award. What happens when their sums don't add up? What's their next broken promise? What's their next ignored consultation? This motion asks one simple question. If the Cabinet is so confident in their arithmetic, why fear scrutiny? If there's no skullduggery in their sums, what's the worry? The claim the £70 charge will save £2.5 million and help avoid the dreaded £34 million budget gap? Fine, prove it. Support this motion and demand they refer implementation to the relevant select committee. Have regular reviews. The residents still deserve transparency, even if 18,000 residents have signed up for it. Support the motion, because if we can't keep them accountable for £70, what hope do we have when they come for the £34 million? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Our inability to honour the commitment we gave in July 2023 is a great embarrassment to me, and I regret having to have done that. But it is as a direct result of the failed promises of this Labour government. They fought the election campaign under a promise not to raise national insurance, amongst other things. And once in power, they promptly did so. Labour argued that it doesn't count, as the increase in national insurance was to be paid by employers, not the hard-working people that Labour pledged to support. They promised to compensate councils for their increase in their direct employment costs, and within weeks broke that undertaking, leaving a budget gap for this year that had to be filled with this charge. They also promised to secure our borders, to smash the gangs, but the small boats are still coming, and a record number of illegal asylum seekers have arrived since Labour were elected. This, together with a promise to end the use of asylum hotels, saving the taxpayer millions of pounds, is now costing Hillingdon residents millions. Labour promised to kickstart growth, but the increase in the employer's national insurance has done the reverse. Tens of thousands of jobs have been lost as companies have cut back on employment, and hospitality companies expect tens, possibly hundreds of thousands more jobs to be lost in the immediate future. Inflation is higher and stickier than had been forecast, costing us all more than is necessary. Essential public services are being starved of essential funding. Listen to the Commissioner, who says that he is not being given enough money to retain the number of police officers he has. The Labour government has broken its promise to deliver economic stability. It has shown itself unable to cut spending, and more strikes are on the way as there seem to be a pushover by the unions. The Office of Budget Responsibility has had to ring the alarm on the ballooning trajectory of public debt and the widening of public deficit. Financial markets are so nervous that they overact to the odd tier. Tax rises are seen to be inevitable in the next budget, adding to a sense of downward spiral, and the majority of voters believe that fiscal rules will be broken. The Chancellor explicitly promised at the last budget to lift the freeze on income tax and national insurance thresholds. She said that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people and take more money out of their pay slips. What hope do we have of this promise being kept come autumn? And finally, the promise to stop the chaos. Recent polls show that 72% of the public now think they have failed on this, and the chaos is only likely to get worse when changes to SEND and the two-child limit benefit limit are considered by Parliament, and Labour again fights amongst itself. One reason for breaking our promise is the cost to the Council of all of these broken promises. I'm pleased that the new Labour leader will not allow broken promises to go unchallenged. What challenge are you going to give to your own government on their
Councillor
broken
Edwards,
promises
wind up,
today?
please.
We will oppose this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak, but there's a real oxymoron here, because we have a Labour group that have voted against a motion for us to be reimbursed £16 million that we are due, but they are quibbling over an entirely voluntary £70 garden waste charge. Councillor Sweeting, you say that your residents say to you, why are they paying more for less? I hope that you go back and say it is because of the Labour government. If Doreen wanted another #1 hit, things could only get worse. People voted for change at the last general election, or so we're told, and they did get change. Things got worse. Within weeks of being in power, they increased national insurance costs for employers like us, which hit our bottom line and wasn't planned for. And it not only is the employees that we directly employ, but those that we employ via numerous third parties, particularly in social care, that continues to add to our burden. Councillor Corr, you say that it's a bargain price in a sarcastic tone. It obviously is an increase that we regret, but it is cheaper than what most neighbouring Labour councils charge for the same service, and it is entirely voluntary, and residents can dispose of their green waste for free at the civic amenity site. I would just like to close by saying I really am shocked by the opposite side of this chamber, not just on this motion, but on the ousting of Councillor Curling and Councillor Gardner, who I have a great deal of respect for. I don't think we can trust them with anything.
Thank you. Councillor Manns?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was definitely not planning on speaking today, but I don't have any speech written or anything, but I'm just shocked at two Conservative councillors, including the leader of the council, not speaking on the motion at all. One's talking about policing and social care, one's talking about the previous motion, and this is absolutely farcical. Maybe I've just woken up, but it is absolutely crazy, because they haven't mentioned garden waste at all. In the leader of the council speech, he doesn't mention garden waste. It just mentions everything else apart from garden waste. So I'm equally as shocked as them, to be honest with you, and I wholeheartedly support this motion. Thank you.
Okay. Before we go back to the seconder of the motion, I'm looking for any other speakers. We appear not to have any, so Councillor Gill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Residents in this borough will promise something, not hinted at, not implied, but promised by this Conservative administration that green waste collections would remain free. Councillor Douglas Mills said, "You always had, you continue to get, and you will get a free service." Councillor Lavery described it as a much-loved free weekly service, assuring us that upgrades meant collections would remain free and weekly. Councillor Smallwood even declared that they would not allow any flip-flopping on collections. Well, Mr. Mayor, the flip-flopping has happened. Today we face a green waste charge, a subscription service that tarnishes every promise made. Instead of taking responsibility, we've heard many excuses. Excuses about other boroughs, excuses about boundaries, excuses about fly tipping. That's not leadership, it's deflection. Let's take a moment to call it what it is. It's a subscription. Households will pay annually like any other subscription we know. The price will only go one way, which is up. Look at Netflix in the UK. Their standard plan increased by 18% over the last few years. Spotify Premium rose by 9%. Amazon's Prime service has gone up by 20%. That's how subscriptions work. They hook you in and then they raise them, just like the green waste will go up. This isn't about green policy. It's not about better service. It's about papering over the cracks created by the poor financial management of this Conservative administration. We were told one thing and delivered another. That's more than a broken promise, it's a broken contract. The contract with the people who trusted you. Someone made a decision to walk away from their manifesto promise, and the rest is just spin. If that's what remains of Conservative leadership in Hillingdon, it's not just the free garden waste that's gone, it's the public confidence in this administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. And we return to the move of the motion, Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There seems much shock in the room, but there is also lots of blame. A 6.2% increase in funding to this council from the government, and yet there is still blame. Them not having grip on their high needs spending, and the government giving them 2 more years to resolve it, and yet there is more blame, blame, blame. And this wasn't a motion about the bin decision, this was a motion about the scrutiny of it. There is no blame, blame, blame in scrutiny. There is active and participative support and enablement to make sure that we achieve the savings that need to be saved so that residents don't have a massive hike in council tax because commissioners come in because the council is bankrupt. We must make these savings, and this was an opportunity to work together with decent scrutiny to enable them. And I'm disappointed and shocked that the party opposite doesn't realise that.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. So now we come to the vote. So can I ask all those in favour of the motion to please show? Thank you. And those against?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That motion is lost.
Thank you, Lloyd. We come on then to motion 8.1 from Councillor Curling. Are you minus a microphone? Okay. Right.
I apologise to members for some of the issues. As you may be aware, we've had some IT issues in the building today. It affected the cameras and the microphones in here, which is why some of them appear not to be working.
Councillor Kearney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move this motion to reaffirm the cross-party position of nothing less than total opposition to a third runway at Heathrow, because a third runway would have an unacceptable impact on the lives of the residents that we represent across Hillingdon. The destruction of approximately 1,000 homes and the decimation of at least 3 historic villages, as well as the huge environmental and health impact it will have. Not to mention the logistical nightmare of rerouting the M25, the M4 and diverting 5 local rivers, which could also impact on flooding risks, as well as the increased traffic and parking issues on our local roads. A third runway will also bring new flight paths with noise and poor air quality to areas such as Uxbridge, Ickenham and Ruislip, whose residents will have low-flying jumbo jets over their homes every 3 to 4 minutes. Mr. Mayor, in local politics, sometimes one must stand up for the residents against the interests of one's own party. It can be a delicate balancing act as to whether to go public or to fight your corner behind closed doors. I have never been frightened to speak truth to power, whether that's telling the Mayor of London that his ULEZ would hurt our residents, particularly those on low incomes, or whether that's to express my opinion in a Labour group meeting that the by-election claim to have saved Uxbridge Police Station was both opportunistic and disingenuous. Ironically, Mr. Mayor, the minutes of that meeting were leaked to demonstrate my supposed lack of political judgment. When it comes to Heathrow expansion, this is something that I've been campaigning against since I was first elected in 2002, which is the same year that the then new Labour government launched the South East and East of England Air Services Report, known as CERAS. This report instigated the third runway debate, and the residents of the Heathrow villages have suffered the blight and uncertainty ever since. This council has always had a long-standing cross-party strong opposition to the third runway. It is probably one of the few issues that has seen both Conservative and Labour councillors and MPs standing side by side for a common cause. John Randall and John McDonnell were known as the two Johns. They worked together to ensure that the message was loud and clear, with local cross-party unity reflected in Parliament. Mr. Mayor, in today's changed Labour Party, any dissent or criticism of the government is not tolerated, even on issues that will have a huge adverse impact on the residents that we are elected to represent. The Prime Minister may have said country before party, but Labour councillors are expected to put party before residents. It may not surprise you to hear that when I was the leader of the Labour group, party officials were applying pressure on me to change the stance that the group took, first by softening the opposition and then to gradual acceptance of a third runway. This was something that I would not accept, and at every possible opportunity I would state that as long as I was the leader of the Hillingdon Labour group, it would be nothing less than unequivocal and 100% opposition to a third runway at Heathrow. Well, Mr. Mayor, I am no longer the leader of the Labour group, so I hope that the new leadership won't buckle under the pressure and will stand up to the abysmally poor political judgment of this Labour government and commit here today to be the blockers, not the builders, of a third runway, and go further and faster in their complete opposition to the destruction of the south of our borough. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Curling. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Gardner. And then we come to Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start by welcoming the newly formed Hayes Independent Party Group. And I don't know anything about internal Labour Party meetings, thankfully. I don't have enough time in my life already. But what I do know is Councillor Curling has always been a man of integrity. I know that I will disagree with the HIP group on many things, but I'm also interested to see how they'll break the conventional straitjacket the Labour Party and Mayor Khan placed them in when they were members of the Hillingdon Labour group. When it comes to this motion, the HIP group don't lie. Building a third runway would be a disaster for many of those who live in Hillingdon. It would also be a disaster for the environment of North West London and the home counties and beyond. The Labour Party strongly supports the construction of a third runway. They see it as being one of the key pillars of their growth strategy. But what is the point of a growth strategy if it makes people sicker? What is the point of a growth strategy if it helps destroy the planet we live on? How desperate and limited is the Labour Party's economic growth plan if they think building a third runway at Heathrow will be a major part of it? I accept the HIP group's invitation to stand together to fight against increased noise pollution, to fight against worsening air quality, to fight against the destruction of Longford, Sipson and Harmondsworth, and to fight against the Labour Party who puts concrete over our residents. Mr. Mayor, I will vote for the HIP group's motion because doing so is putting our residents first.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. You managed to get Shakira into your speech as well. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I do thank the former Labour leader for having moved this motion. And it's actually no surprise to hear from him that the Labour councillors are expected to put party before residents. That's clearly been evidenced tonight. Hillingdon's Conservatives have opposed the third runway since the outset. Heathrow is amongst the busiest airports in the world, and it probably causes more harm to more residents than any other major airport. A report commissioned by the Council of the Independent Scrutiny of Heathrow Airport, a body approved by government, reveals that more people live within 10 kilometres of Heathrow than any other major European airport, and therefore its harm impacts more people. Amsterdam's Schiphol, a benchmark, has the same annual traffic movements as Heathrow, but impacts directly only 2/3 the residents. Charles de Gaulle, less than half the residents. It is our position that there are no tests that can be applied that would sufficiently protect our residents from further or greater harms that would follow an airport expansion just as night follows day. Our position is markedly different from the MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip and a number, I believe, of Labour councillors who support a third runway as long as it meets the government's 4 tests. But none of those tests considers the number of people that will be adversely impacted by an even larger and busier Heathrow Airport. They appear to be saying that they would support a private business being able to earn more profit even though it would harm our residents as long as it didn't harm them too much. But what is too much? The planning process for a second runway at Gatwick Airport applied a lower threshold for harm from noise than has been applied at Heathrow in the past and that was applied at a recent Luton Airport planning consideration. Which of these two tests will the government apply to Heathrow moving forward? The low mitigation, greater harm standard of yesterday, or the new higher mitigation cost, lowest harm standard applied at Gatwick Airport? Needless to say, Heathrow favours the low-cost option. Then there's ultrafine particulates, which contribute to air toxicity and emitted by jet engines. Amsterdam Schiphol are now researching this issue, and they advise employees who work on airside to wear respirators protection at airport stands owing to air toxicity. Even though the government own experts recommended the monitoring of ultrafine particulates at major airports, no robust system has yet been established at Heathrow. The correlation between low-income households, working people in Labour parlance, and their proximity to the airport exists just as it does with the quality of air and its proximity to the airport. It does seem to be Labour's position that any air quality benefits that have been obtained and will be obtained through technologies and new fuels can be given up to allow for airport expansion, thereby condemning those living in the area to even greater future health inequalities. Hillingdon Conservative oppose such thinking, oppose airport expansion, and will support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Money.
Oh, mine's working. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Curling, for bringing this motion. As both a resident of Heathrow Villages and an elected councillor for Heathrow Villages, I rise today to fully support this motion and to once again make clear my strong opposition to the third runway at Heathrow. This is not just a political issue, it's an environmental and human crisis in the making. Successive governments of all political colours have pressed ahead with Heathrow expansion despite overwhelming evidence of the irreversible damage it will cause, and we have opposed them. The environmental consequences are devastating at a time when the climate emergency is staring us all in the face, when we are being urged locally, nationally and globally to cut emissions, protect air quality and safeguard the future of our planet. This proposal flies in the opposite direction. A third runway would pump millions of tonnes of additional carbon emissions into the atmosphere, worsen already poor air quality and contribute to the climate crisis that threatens us all. And the damage doesn't just stop with the environment. It hits our communities at their core. The mere threat of a third runway is tearing our area apart. Investors are coming in and buying up family homes. Family homes are being lost and replaced by HMOs. Long-standing neighbours are leaving, community spirit is fading, and residents are left living with constant uncertainty, anxiety and decline. Noise, air pollution and increased health risks will fall hardest on those who have already borne the brunt for too long. The burden is being placed on the very communities who have endured decades of disruption. Our message today is simple and resolute. We will not stand by while our environment is destroyed, our communities dismantled, and our residents put at risk. We support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Curling for bringing this motion. I, along with all members on this side, will strongly support this motion, and I urge all councillors to do the same. This is one of those issues where we have been united over the years, regardless of the government in power that has pursued this policy. And governments of both persuasions have done this. This is the latest Rachel Reeves' idea to revive the economy, and she seems to want to do it at breakneck speed. But I would also urge you to get the current MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip to join the united front of the other two MPs in this borough, because having all three MPs against it has proven very valuable in the past. I have spoken at meetings with John MacDonald in Hayes, and he has always been a very strong opponent of this, as have previous MPs for Uxbridge. I realise there is a career risk to Labour politicians in disagreeing with their leadership, but I urge him to stand with residents on this one. The proposed third runway will have a devastating impact on this borough, and Councillor Money's already talked about Heathrow Villages. It's the destruction down there, it's the blight that already exists, and the longer we talk about this, the longer it's on the agenda, the more that blight will affect those communities. There will be vast disruption to any build programme. You're talking about tunnelling under the M25, or putting the M25 underneath a runway, whichever way you want to put it, diverting rivers. And if anyone thinks the current cost estimates will hold, I'll refer you to HS2. And I think that's the closest I'll ever get. we talked about noise. Noise is significant. One of the things that people will try and do is use the higher noise standards previously used at Heathrow to assess this proposal. The government is minded to accept the Gatwick decision to impose higher noise standards, i.e. lower noise limits on any Gatwick expansion. And those of us who've ever been to Gatwick, it affects far fewer people than Heathrow. Heathrow is one of those things, you wouldn't put it where it is today, but it is there. So Heathrow must be held to that same standard. Air quality is a major issue both on the ground and from aircraft, not to mention the increased congestion that we'll see on the AM4 and the M25 and all round the airport, which does have weak public transport links depending where you come from. So I strongly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully endorse this motion, and I'm seeking a crucial appeal for the residents of Heathrow villages. This community has endured a looming threat of expansion for far too long, grappling with daily uncertainties regarding their homes, school, and way of life. It fundamentally concerns the lives of those who live in Heathrow villages. Residents have witnessed a heart-wrenching loss of their family home as they are purchased by consortiums and Heathrow Limited and is converted into houses in multiple occupancy, leading to a gradual decline in community cohesion. Many residents have forsaken and left in a state of uncertainty by a council that has failed to adequately address their grievances. This council bears the responsibility to advocate for our residents, yet their voices have been overlooked for an extended period. The blight affecting our village is evidence. We have continually called for the implementation of Article 4 to safeguard our community against the unchecked spread of HMOs. The lack of oversight on application for these properties, coupled with absence of a landlord licensing framework, highlighted troubling disregard for the preservation of our neighborhood. This leaves our residents feeling trapped in an environment that lacks concerns for their welfare. Individuals in Heathrow villages are struggling to achieve a fair sale that accurately represent the values of their home. This adequate compensation not only undermines their financial security, but also impede their ability to move areas where they might experience a better quality of life. It is utterly unacceptable that residents should endure such hardship while the council remains unresponsive. If this council generally opposes the detrimental effects of expansion, why then are they neglecting the voice of Heathrow villages? We require decisive action, not mere rhetoric. It is imperative that we prioritize the welfare of our community and ensure their concerns are met with prompt attention and understanding. Let us unite in strong support for this motion and advocate for a future where the needs of our residents are paramount and their voices resonate. It is time to take action and safeguard the interests of people in Heathrow villages. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I welcome this motion from Councillor Curling and his continued support of this. And let me be clear, Hillingdon Labour Group remains opposed to the expansion of Heathrow and are in support of this motion. This is not a new position, nor is it a partisan one. Successive governments of different colours, as we've all mentioned, have supported expansion, but the united voice of our communities has consistently said no. However, I do want to echo the concerns from my colleague, Councillor Nelson, around us needing to show support for the residents of Heathrow villages and surrounding areas, in order to ensure that there is no managed decline and residents aren't seeing their communities decaying, that the council use all of the power it has to listen and to serve those residents, particularly as they struggle with this blight. In Heathrow Villages, we have struggled to see solutions regarding parking, HMO licensing and other disruptive matters. And although I respect and am grateful for Cabinet members and others for attending residents' meetings, we need to see more results, and we will work with them as much as possible through our ward councillors and ourselves in the leadership to ensure that Heathrow Villages get the support they need in this difficult time. Residents tonight deserve a council that doesn't stand still on its responsibilities, and where the council has control, we should be doing all we can to support residents with local issues. Hillingdon Labour stands with residents of Heathrow Villages and the whole borough, and Hillingdon Labour stands with this chamber and supports this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Now we come to Councillor Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. I rise to start by congratulating Councillor Curling on his new role and strongly support his motion. Whatever our political differences, he's always worked constructively with our council on opposing Heathrow expansion, and I'm pleased to see this is continuing. This council has a long-standing and united record of opposing a third runway at Heathrow, and for good reason. And tonight I want to focus on two of those reasons. First, the devastating local impact. We cannot ignore the fact, as Councillor Nelson and Councilman have said, Heathrow Villages ward would either be demolished or rendered unlivable. Schools gone, places of worship bulldozed, community hubs lost, and thousands of people, homeowners and council tenants alike, forced from their homes. And does the government have a grand plan for this? No, they don't. Second, the damage to the rest of the UK. I'm not anti-aviation, and nor is this council. In fact, I'm a huge supporter of growing the UK's aviation sector, especially through expanding regional airports and getting the whole country moving, not just the South East. But Heathrow expansion does the opposite. It pulls growth towards London and not to the rest of the UK. The Department of Transport's own figures show that a non-London airport growth would be 17% lower if Heathrow expands. The Transport Select Committee found there would be 170,000 fewer flights from regional airports. And the government's own national airport policy statement says regional airports would suffer. That's why this council is incredibly proud to be members of the No Third Runway Coalition, led by the excellent Paul McGuinness, who works cross-party and across the UK to make the case against Heathrow expansion and for a fairer, balanced aviation future. At the end of this month, we expect to see possibly some new proposals to be brought forward. Let's be under no illusion. They will mean more planes, more noise, more traffic, and more of the borough carved up to suit Heathrow's needs. And to my final point, the vote I'm most interested in tonight is from Councillor Nelson West, a declared supporter of Heathrow expansion, an activist for Back Heathrow, a campaign group that bankrolled itself and does the dirty work that pretends to represent local residents. It simply doesn't. So as Councillor Gill said, I hope the ultimate flip-flop is performed tonight and Councillor Nelson West joins us across this chamber and votes to say no to a third runway.
Okay, before we come to Councillor Gardner, a second of the motion, are there any other speakers? Apparently not. Okay. Councillor Gardner, please. Okay, fair enough. So sorry, just to be clear, Councillor Garner, you don't want to add anything. Okay. So therefore, Councillor Curling, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's good to see that the cross-party opposition of the third runway continues, well, at least for the time being. To be honest, Mr. Mayor, I'm not convinced that the Labour Group's new leadership are really committed to the full-on opposition of a third runway, or that Councillor Mathers will have the strength to resist the pressure from both party officials and his own deputy leader to toe the party line. Councillor Punja is a prolific community campaigner. Indeed, some might say that she's jumped on every bandwagon that's come to town. But when it comes to Heathrow expansion, there's no real enthusiasm to campaign against it. Could that be because it would be campaigning against the government, which would be a career-limiting move for her? To be honest, Mr. Mayor, I would not be surprised to see Councillor Punja as the leader of the Labour Group after next year's local elections, and for the Labour Group to change to being one that supports the third runway. And if that happens, it will be the biggest betrayal of the residents that this chamber has ever seen. Mr Mayor, this is such an important issue for our borough that I would like a recorded or named vote. Unfortunately, as of yet, we don't have enough members in the independent group to stand for a named vote. So I would ask that members of the other groups ensure that a named vote is taken. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Culling. We appear to have enough for a recorded vote. Over to you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I will be asking each member in turn if you are voting for motion 8.1 from Councillor Curling, seconded by Councillor Gardner, against or abstaining. Councillor Abbey.
For.
Councillor Ahmad Walana. Councillor Banerjee. Councillor Bassett. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Batt. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Burles. Councillor Burrows. Councillor Roy Chamdal. Councillor Chubadar. Councillor Curling. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dennis. Councillor Dott. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Farley. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gaelic. Councillor Garg. Councillor Gill. Councillor Goddard. Councillor Gohill. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Islam. Councillor Kaur. Councillor Lakmana. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lewis. Councillor Makwana. Councillor Mand. Councillor Martin. Councillor Mathers. Councillor Douglas Mills. Councillor Richard Mills. Councillor Money. Councillor Nelson. Councillor Nelson West. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Punja. Councillor Riley. Councillor Sansapuri. Councillor Singh. Councillor Smallwood. Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Sweeting. Madam Deputy Mayor. Mr Mayor.
For.
Mr Mayor, that motion is carried unanimously.
On that note of unanimity, we come to the final motion of the evening. 8.3, Councillor Plunger.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, a few weeks ago, you and I attended the graduation ceremony for students from Uxbridge College, completing an employment pathway opportunity at the Rural Activities Garden Centre. You were taken on a tour and shown the magic of the RAGC as you met people whose lives have been transformed by horticultural therapy. Now, under your mayorship, despite the Save Our RAGC campaign being the largest in this borough has ever seen, this Conservative administration will shut down Hillingdon's hidden gem and destroy the lives of the entire community of the RAGC to save just £137,000. On the evening that Cabinet agreed to close the retail operations of the RAGC, both portfolio holding Cabinet member Councillor Lavery and the leader of the council, Councillor Edwards, were missing in action. Alarmingly, Mr Mayor, the remaining Conservative Cabinet members were prepared to agree recommendations in a report that was flawed with financial inaccuracies, lacked detailed information to make high-quality decisions, cited misleading information on health and safety requirements, and failed to delegate authority to the correct Cabinet member as per Hillingdon Council's constitution. But who reads these reports anyway? Clearly neither the Cabinet nor the members opposite. I would like to remind this chamber that the Section 25 report only in February this year clearly outlined the failings of successive Conservative administrations, and high on that list were poor financial oversight and poor cultural governance. The Rural Activities Garden Centre report presented to Cabinet shows that this financial and reporting culture has still not improved. Council's external auditors in May this year wanted to put on record, and I quote, "Rarely in my career have I seen an internal audit opinion with no assurance and notwithstanding the improvements that officers have talked about in the future. It is a very significant and serious matter that no assurance can be provided over the internal control, risk management and governance control of this authority." So instead of correcting the financial inaccuracies or providing robust alternative provision assessments to solidify the recommendations, the Deputy Leader, Councillor Bianco, referred to the subsidy that Hillingdon Council gives RAGC as inappropriate. It may not be financially viable for the Council anymore, but inappropriate, a poor choice of words even for a stand-in. At the same meeting, Cabinet member for Health and Social Care, Councillor Palmer, scolded residents like they were 5 years old in a playground. Residents were shocked into painfully explaining to their loved ones that they were being asked to shut up and put up. Mr Mayor, I'm not sure if Councillor Palmer has visited the RAGC, but I urge her to do so in order to better understand how she is going to replace the idyllic, with, in her words, and she gave her word, a calming, safe and enhanced offer here at the Civic. This motion is an opportunity for Cabinet to reconsider its decision, to pause on the closure of the RAGC, to produce a robust and accurate report which provides a cost-benefit analysis on the alternative provisions with robust EIAs and safeguarding, to begin the consultation process with volunteers and gardeners with social care needs effectively and responsibly. Mr Mayor, I heard Councillor Tuckwell's plea on ITV News for my help to save this council from its financial grave. My solution to this issue lies in this motion, which is a win-win for both council and our RAGC community. By supporting this motion, Cabinet can take 90 days to produce a robust and fit-for-purpose report. Meanwhile, during that 90-day period, ask the community at RAGC to raise the necessary £137,000 needed to keep the RAGC open. Should they be able to raise the funds, then that subsidy from the council would not be necessary and everybody wins. The closure of the retail operations to review further provision is disingenuous. What reduced the council subsidy in the first place has been closed, increasing subsidy to over 200k, which we know this council cannot afford. If this closure is purely about subsidy, then there is no reason that members here cannot give them a chance to raise the money to keep the centre open. So I ask, give them a chance. Mr Mayor, I am begging, not on behalf of myself, but for the thousands of voices that have tried in so many ways to say, hear me. All of us in this chamber know someone with learning difficulties or with mental health issues. Some of us in this chamber have been affected ourselves. Let us tell them, we hear them, and give them a chance. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Punja. Is that seconded?
Mr Mayor, I second the reserve to my right to speak at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. So we have Councillor Dennis, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand why some of those who volunteer at the RAGC and their families are here tonight, so welcome. But I hope to explain why they should not be worried about the future. Firstly, it's important to be clear that the RAGC is a commercial garden centre run by the council. It is not, or has ever been, a social care commission service, nor does it provide medically designed horticultural therapy. What the Cabinet decided was that Hillingdon Council should not use taxpayers' money to subsidise a garden centre. I support that decision in the same way I supported the decision of the Council no longer to give £250,000 of taxpayers' money to a private theatre company, nor to subsidise the pursuit of golf. Even if you believe that the Council should subsidise the running of a garden centre, decisions made by the Labour government mean it would be irresponsible for any council to do so. For example, and we've heard about it before, the Labour government's increase to national insurance contributions has led to a substantial cost in the increase for social care providers who have to have staff to do their job well. This decision by the National Labour government is an attack on social care providers across the country and stops them from delivering the high-quality, person-centred care that they wish to, because ultimately good care is about the relationship people have. Some of those concerns that have been raised about whether those users of the RAGC who have social care needs will be okay. I have spoken with both the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and the Health and and the Director for Health and Social Care on this. I've received assurances that if the space is closed, those who garden there as part of their care packages or have other learning disabilities will be able to continue gardening in a way that supports their needs. I trust them to fulfil this promise, and I would like to place on record again that Councillor Palmer is a person of integrity and she cares about the role that she does. I have no doubt about that. We might disagree, but I don't think we should go into personal insults on people unless we really, really believe that they are questionable as people. Our adult social care service was recently judged by the Care Quality Commission to be one of the best in London and nationally. The CQC praised the Council for its partnership approach, which resulted in improved outcomes. Carers in Hillingdon reported positive experiences. Also, the Council's senior leadership was noted for being visible, engaged and compassionate. They care. I do not support the request to ask our Cabinet to reconsider whether Hillingdon residents should pay the running costs of a garden centre. With regard to those who use the RAGC as part of their care programmes, I have no doubt that our social service team will continue to offer high-quality supervised garden opportunities. For this reason, I oppose the motion.
Councillor Sansa, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As of 26th of June 2025, this Conservative administration agreed to cease retail side operation based at Rural Activity Garden Centre in West Drayton on or before 31st of July 2025, noting its continued loss-making commercial position and the public subsidy required. Firstly, when did the RAGC become a commercial enterprise? Its purpose, as per the report under the sporting information, was to provide educational and sporting learning opportunity for the resident with additional needs, including learning difficulty, disability, and mental health condition. The centre also operates as a community retail garden centre, the sales from which reduce the subsidy provided by the council. Its closure means that the subsidy required will undoubtedly increase. Mr. Mayor, if the council is making decisions based on commercial gain and profit making, then will it be closing all schools, colleges, and other provisions they are not making profit but serve as a valuable provision to our residents of the borough? In addition, the report says that the retail sale of the garden centre were failing by 42% year on year. Yet the figure in the report shows only a 2.8% decrease in the sales, and we do not have information on whether the Conservative closure of the rural tea room in 2023 have any negative effect on sales income. Mr. Mayor, are the Cabinet unable to read financial tables or understand the basic maths? Why did not amend the financial inaccuracy? Is it because their argument has no credibility without inaccurate financial information? Mr. Mayor, I have been a customer and supporter of the RAGC for many years and buy my seasonal plant there. I am helped to find the right plant by the staff and applaud the volunteer for creating such amazing horticulture space in our community where everyone can go. I am personally disappointed to witness such destruction by the council and ask every member of this council to support this motion for Cabinet member to reconsider his harsh decision. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No other. Oh, I beg your pardon, Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It will not surprise Council to discover that I am not supporting this motion tonight. The Cabinet has already made a decision based on a clear report with appropriate recommendations. Cabinet decisions, as I will remind the opposition, are collective. That is why they are taken in open Cabinet as a group and not as Cabinet member decisions. The Cabinet supported the paper before it with a clear recommendation to close the loss-making retail operation. It's very nice you can purchase your plants there, but we are not in the business of selling plants. In terms of the users, and Councillor Palmer, both at Cabinet and in earlier answers tonight, has given very clear information of how they will be supported, and that is extremely important. And I know people wish to use them as a political football, but that is not what we're trying to do here. The users fall into broadly three groups. There are those groups with assessed adult social care needs. This is not an adult social care facility. This is a place where people with personal budgets can choose to use. And they don't use it all week. They may use it once, they may use it twice. It does vary. There's a second group of people, I'll call them the gardeneers because that's the title they've acquired, who may or may not have needs, but at this stage do not have adult social care assessments, and we've already committed that where those are appropriate, they will be carried out, and I have every confidence in the adult social care team who are managing this. The third group at the garden centre are loosely called volunteers, with no proven needs at this stage. Now, we have lots of volunteers, and we will work to find volunteers other volunteering opportunities. Much work has already been done by social services, and the motion does reference, although Councillor Punja chose not to put it in her speech, that there was no support at the meeting on 30th of May, and I do understand actually social workers were present. This decision closes the retail operation, and we will work for the needs of the users. I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corr, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are being asked tonight to accept the so-called sensitive closure of an important part of a service that heals, employs, and uplifts. A space that welcomes the most vulnerable and makes them feel human again. Because that's what's at stake here. It isn't just the Rural Activities Garden Centre or its retail, and despite the promises, it's the people, it's their dignity, it's the quiet lifelines that hold together the lives of vulnerable adults, older residents, young people with disabilities, and carers just trying to cope. This council is rightly being asked to reconsider a decision that would, in truth, rip up one of the few genuinely inclusive spaces left in our borough. It is a decision with profound human cost, a decision that frankly fails both on compassion and competence. Let me share the story of a young man, M, just 18, newly arrived, grieving the death of a friend he tried to save from drowning, alone, traumatized, placed in social care. When he was offered the chance to volunteer at the garden centre, something shifted. When I watered the plants, I felt I was helping. It gave me small happiness in my time of big sadness, he says. And adds that the people at the garden centre made him feel part of a team, that they helped him when he was low, that it was the first time in a long time that he could sleep through the night. Now tell me, how do you budget for that? This isn't just one story, it's one of many. A resident who has seen the impact of supported internship program run in partnership with the RAGC says, one young man, previously only accessing education 1 day a week, now works 4 full days and has moved into paid work. His success has inspired his siblings to apply as well. This is the future, she says. It's inclusive, it's education, and the outcome is employment. She tells me there are 18 applications for next year's program. This council should have, before declaring it loss-making, reviewed the financial model properly, explored partnerships, costed out alternative models, scoped safe, accessible provision for current users, and above all, listened to its service users, to its residents, and to the staff who have made this space what it is. I urge you all to support this motion. Please do not turn your back on those who have nowhere else to turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion and the many residents here and at home who are hoping for good sense and compassion to prevail this evening. So let's call on a great Britain to bring some sense into the proceedings. As one well-known quote from Sir Winston Churchill states, those who never change their minds never change anything. He also said, to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. The motion before us this evening has the strength of thousands of Hillingdon voices behind it and is asking, nay, begging for a change of mind from this Conservative administration to the closure of the Rural Activities Garden Centre. It has been a place of sanctuary for many years. Yes, there is a financial deficit attached to it, but there will be a moral deficit attached to this administration if its gates are closed for good. Hillingdon will be turning its back on the gardener volunteers and where their comparable provision will just not be available. Item C on the motion focuses a spotlight on what seems to have been passed over in Hillingdon's unduly haste to close this well-beloved centre. Namely, what is the alternative provision? Is it suitable? Is it sufficient? And more importantly, will it be safe? The Conservative administration has been filling the empty spaces in the Civic Centre with all sorts of facilities, the relocated library, the relocated Learn Hillingdon and the Uxbridge hub. But these were all in modified buildings, not into unused external spaces which just happened to be available. Where are the scoping options on the new provision and the costings and the consultation on exactly what the new provision will provide? Just the information provided in the press statement that, and I quote, to relocate volunteers to the Civic Centre campus across the site's gardens, public realm areas and green spaces, end quote. Just as if they were pieces of equipment to be moved around and not our most vulnerable. I wholeheartedly support the motion. Thank you.
We come to Councillor Gerlich now, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I speak in support of this motion as I am really concerned about the Cabinet Member for Community Environment, Councillor Lavery's comments in Hillingdon Council own press release. It quotes Councillor Lavery saying, "The Council lacks the commercial expertise and funds to compete with other garden centres, and we simply cannot expect our residents to subsidise a loss-making retail venture when the site could be put to a more sustainable use." Firstly, it is important for the Council to recognise that RAGC is not a commercial garden centre, and therefore calling it loss-making demonstrates that the Cabinet Member does not understand the importance that the retail operation has in reducing Council subsidy to provide the horticultural experience and provision as part of a Gardener's social care plan. Additionally, as there were no figures provided in the report to Cabinet on the cost of running the retail operation as such, there is no evidence that it does make a loss. Lastly, what does the Cabinet Member mean when he says the site could be put to a more sustainable use? He cannot mean environmentally, because the site adds to the borough's green agenda. So I wonder whether he means financially. However, we are told that there are no plans for the future of the site as of yet. If there are no plans, then how would Councillor Lavery know whether something else is more financially sustainable or not? Maybe this is part of the asset stripping goal to meet the £24 million worth of savings it needs to avoid bankruptcy. But I suppose when we say we want a sustainable Hillingdon, what we really mean is let's cut everything that doesn't turn a profit and maybe sell the land to someone who would plant luxury flats instead of tomatoes. I urge members to support this motion as it enables the Cabinet to bring back integrity to decision making. Thank you.
Okay, there don't seem to be any other speakers, so I'm going to come to Councillor Mayor. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Nelson West has indicated, so Councillor Nelson West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My son is autistic, and like all people with special educational needs and learning difficulties, they thrive on and need continuity. They don't like changes to their routine. They like unbroken patterns and consistency of what they do every day, and that is all the time. Even simple things like changing the school run route can have serious problems. They need stability. Mr. Mayor, do you honestly and truly believe that what this Conservative administration is doing to the RAGC is going to help them in any way, or do you think it will make things worse? Especially with the proposed new location of the concrete jungle we call the Civic Centre Gardens, with its unsafe dual carriageways and bridges. Mr. Mayor, one of your charities this year is to Send Family Support, based here in Hillingdon, supporting families and caring for individuals with SEND. So you know personally by your support of SEND FS how important it is to look after and keep open the RAGC. A jewel in Hillingdon's crown, or so it was said, offering vital services for families and adults and dealing with learning difficulties. As a family, we regularly visit the RAGC. My wife, who is the green fingers of the household, loves going around the centre and getting her plants, flowers and even her eggs. as well as getting tips from the gardeners or gardeneers and volunteers, or even chatting to the families in the cafe, though that too was closed by the heartless Conservative administration. My young family and I also personally suffered from the continuous uncaring Conservative administrations. They didn't understand people would send and the need for continuity and stability. We were struck off the housing register and made homeless by them in 2015. And you guessed it, offered no temporary accommodation, help or support from them whatsoever. I had to take them to the High Court and overturn their decision. So, I see nothing has changed then. Just the same broom, but with a different head and different handle, just like Trigger's broom. Then and now they just do not see or understand the needs of people, especially those with SEND and learning difficulties. How can 7 cabinet members consistently upset all of the people, all of the time? Surely, Mr. Mayor, you and some of the members opposite feel deep down this is just morally wrong. Mr. Mayor, I urge you to support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to speak because so much of what I was going to say has already been covered by my 2 colleagues. But it does seem to me as though there has been a collide in the 2 functions that carry on at this particular site. And you will know from your own long standing that horticultural activities were provided at that site long before a commercial garden centre was opened. That is what I'm being told by officers. The fact that a commercial garden centre was introduced there was to help fund the services of the horticultural activities. It was expected that that would turn a profit. It hasn't. It is turning a loss. And because it is a loss-making commercial exercise, this council has no expertise in running and has no desire to get into the garden centre business, we are withdrawing from that, and that is why the decision has been made. The other part of it, the horticultural activities, needs to carry on. We recognise that, and that is being looked at. And we mustn't consider these horticultural activities only take place at that particular site. One only has to look at the flower beds, the front of this Civic Centre alongside the forecourt, and the proud plaque that is displayed there, showing that that is maintained by the people of the Rural Activities Garden Centre. It is quite possible for these activities to be provided elsewhere, and that is what officers are suggesting may happen. The decision of what is going to happen with the future of those horticultural activities have yet to be taken place. That will come forward after consultation with those involved, after consultation with the carers and families, and that will be a decision to be taken at a later date. At this moment, it is quite simply, do we or do we not run a commercial garden centre? Colleagues here believe that it is a function of council. We should fund it. We should subsidise people's plants, including your own. Congratulations. It's nice that you get a discount on behalf of our other residents. But probably our residents will feel that that is an inappropriate use of funds. That is the conclusion of the Cabinet, and that is why that garden centre is being closed. The horticultural activities, though, will be ongoing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, so are there any other speakers before we get back to Councillor Mathers, rather? Miss Mathers? Okay, Councillor Mathers, you're the seconder. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As councillors have said tonight, the campaign to save the RAGC is the largest public process in Hillingdon, possibly ever. 2 petitions, one coming from Ruislip, the other coming from Northwood, between them gathered 6,500 signatures. Not forgetting the nearly 1,000 letters to Cabinet, many emails to councillors and Cabinet explaining the flaws in the report, the stained press coverage, ITV News, and of course an adjournment debate last week at Parliament, which I had the privilege of attending with some of the service users and their families. It was such a moving experience, and I'm grateful they got the credit they deserve. What has been apparent throughout this process, from where the proposal was first announced on the 30th of May, is its cruel manner in which it was undertaken. How convenient the council in this process have changed the centre's purpose. They've changed the goalposts. They've changed what we are meant to understand of the RAGC. The council must be in real desperation if they need to hold an urgent meeting with volunteers and gardeners without proper reasonable adjustments to ensure that the message of this meeting was understood. How is that okay? How is that appropriate? Questions the council and cabinet members need to ask themselves. Whilst other councils are initiating such centres of horticultural therapy, understanding the value it brings to supporting adults with autism and learning difficulties, this council chooses to close it down. They choose to close away that space and sanctuary that the centre provides. They say they are only closing the retail operations, but let's be clear, without the retail operation, the subsidy would be much greater. And the council cannot afford that in a year when it needs to save 34 million. Furthermore, some gardeners on social care plans were sent letters this week informing them, as we have heard, about the alternative centre at the Civic Centre. The focus on maintaining the civic grounds. I'm so deeply saddened at the notion that our gardeners on social care plans and other volunteers are going to be used as free labour to maintain the council grounds. I hope that's not the intent, because it seems just that. The convenience of giving up land that the council can sell, it all just seems too coincidental. These are vulnerable residents, but residents that can give a great contribution, and they have done for many years, and that was recognised in Parliament, and I want to recognise it here. The volunteers, both those supporting and gardening themselves, have been invaluable to this amazing borough, and they are a huge credit to all of us, and we should not take that for granted. None of these points that we've heard in any papers or tonight sound like actions haven't already been predetermined. The Conservatives have shown their actions, and it is utterly predetermined. They're simply showing another example of putting property or property sale before people. Please support this motion.
And finally, back to Councillor Punger as the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, it seems that people don't either read reports or read motions. I'm not asking for the council to subsidise this place. I'm asking for you to give them a chance to raise the money and actually create a fit-for-purpose report rather than financial inaccuracies in the report that that your cabinet or our cabinet of this council seem to be agreeing to without reading or quantifying things. So firstly, I am ashamed of this council's Conservative administration doesn't have the integrity to correct its errors and make decisions based on robust reports and consultations. It's astounding that decision makers are not concerned with accuracy or high quality information, just spilling out pathetic drivel to cover up their sorry financial mess that is of their own doing. Secondly, I'm frustrated and disappointed with fellow Conservative councillors who sit in scrutiny committees and who do not take it upon themselves to even vote during call-in processes, knowing full well that improvements in financial accuracy and robust reporting are a fundamental requirement of this council. Thirdly, I am heartbroken for the families and community that members opposite have chosen to destroy. I have been a customer of RAGC for 15 years, but over the last few weeks I've had the pleasure of meeting the people who have devoted their lives to creating the wonder of the Rural Activities Garden Centre. This borough is indebted to the entire RAGC community for the sanctuary you have provided for this vulnerable residents. I'm not asking for you to reconsider so that you can provide a subsidy to these people. I'm asking for you to allow them to actually raise the money to run that garden shop themselves. And I don't see why, if this is only about subsidy, that you can't do that. So I hope that you will search your consciences today, because every one of us knows people who suffer with learning difficulties, who suffer with mental health. In fact, 3 councillors went up on Facebook and actually turned around and put one of their councillors to show it's I'm okay and it's not okay to be okay. So today, there is a community out there that we must stand for. So I urge you all to stand for them.
Thank you, Councillor Punger. So at this point, we come to a vote on the motion. Over to you, Lloyd.
A recorded vote has been asked for, Mr. Mayor, and supported by the correct number of people. So I will ask each member in alphabetical order if you are voting for the motion 8.3, moved by Councillor Punger, seconded by Councillor Mathers, against or abstaining. Starting with Councillor Abbey.
For the motion.
Sorry,
For.
Thank you so much. Councillor Ahmad Walana. Councillor Banerjee. Councillor Bassett. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Batt. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Burles. Councillor Burrows. Councillor Roy Chamdale. Councillor Chubadar. Councillor Curling. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dennis. Councillor Dott. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Farley, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Gaelic, Councillor Garg, Councillor Gill, not there, Councillor Goddard, Councillor Gohill, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Islam, 4, Councillor Kaur, Councillor Lakmana, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Lewis, Councillor Makwana, Councillor Mand, Councillor Martin, Councillor Mathers, Councillor Douglas Mills, Councillor Richard Mills, Councillor Money, Councillor Nelson, Councillor Nelson West, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Punja, Councillor Riley, Councillor Sansapuri, Councillor Singh, Councillor Smallwood, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Sweeting, Madam Deputy Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Against.
Mr. Mayor, that motion is lost by 26 votes to 21, I believe.
Thank you very much, everyone. I believe that brings proceedings to an end this evening, end of a long, sticky evening. So